What does it mean, fine art landscape photography? Is there such a thing called fine art landscape photography? How difficult it is to make a photo. It's a landscape photo and it's a good photo, but it's more than a good photo that transcends this idea of a good photo and becomes a fine art landscape photo. When winter is just arriving, the first weeks of snow are pure magic for a landscape photographer. It's only after 3 or 4 months of cold and white snow I really wish to see the green of spring. And let me know in comments below if you relate to this situation, because right now I feel it's like magic in here. I feel like I'm in a magic fairy tale place. But I know for sure that 3 months from now, it's not going to be that fun anymore. I also have an announcement to make, and it's something that's going to happen next week. And the details for this event are going to be in the description of this video. I'm going to hold a webinar. I'm going to organize a webinar, and it's going to be a limited seat places. It's going to be a maximum of 50 people that can attend this webinar. And the reason for this is because it's a paid webinar. I will talk about the concept of the subject in landscape photography, my vision about landscape photography, how I see light, how I see composition, how I'm thinking about landscape photography. It's not a webinar where I teach you landscape photography or I talk about settings. It's more the artistic side and the aesthetic side, and how I'm trying to make better photos. And the details for the price and how you can enroll for this webinar are in the description of this video, so check it out if you're interested in this. Now, we tend to associate the idea of fine art with black and white photography, and I think it's because in the period of black and white photography, when black and white photography was at its peak, that is when the term fine art photography was coined or invented or got its name. And I think because of that, we tend to associate it with black and white photos. I saw a video about some photos that were sold at incredible prices, photos made during our days. So we also have black and white images, color images, or maybe really long and incredibly long exposures that where you almost see nothing in this photo. So that makes me wonder if people pay that much money for those photos, I think it should be fine art landscape photos, because otherwise why pay for a normal photo that amount of money? But what if this concept of fine art relates to something else? I mean, when the term was invented, there weren't that many photographers. The photographic gear wasn't that accessible, and the few that were good photographers, and among those few there were even fewer, so a very, very low number of photographers that were exceptional. And in order to separate them from the others, they invented this term of fine art photography. It's just a thought. Usually when you think about fine art, you think about photos that are different, not necessarily good or extraordinary photos, but they have something bold, something that is completely different from a normal photo. And before you say something, just think about this. When you say something is fine art, you don't find it everywhere. But when you have incredibly good photos everywhere, I don't think it has any point to be called fine art. It's just like having one bottle of water in the desert, and that bottle of water can be your life, can mean really something to you. But in our lives, water is everywhere. So we don't look at it with as much importance as we would if we would be in a desert with only one bottle. Another thing that I'm thinking of is that in order to have fine art photos, you need an audience that knows about art, that knows about compositional light, that has a deep understanding of photography, that has knowledge about this. And I don't think this is the case. I think people take photography for granted these days. You just photograph everywhere and everything, and sometimes photos that are mundane and plain and just simple snapshots are more liked than photos that maybe the author thought of something or tried to create something. Or maybe a photo can become fine art when you sell that photo in a certain place. So think about this. You have the opportunity to sell your photo in a high-end auction, in a high-end location where people with lots of money come there and they are buying your photo for an incredible amount of money. Maybe that is the moment when your photo becomes fine art. There are experiments with art objects from IKEA placed in an art gallery and people went nuts. There are examples with normal clothes being placed in a high location and being marketed as a high-end luxury brand, and people went nuts for those. So maybe fine art is just where you present your photos. Who gets to see your photos? Who pays for your photos? Maybe you're becoming an art photographer the minute you get in a certain place, or you get to exhibit your photos in a certain location. I don't know. Maybe you have a friend and you can exhibit in a museum. I think that fine art, this concept of fine art, can really mean something, or it can mean nothing. Really shitty photos can become fine art if they are presented in a certain way. I think this is the world we are living in. It doesn't necessarily mean that they really are fine art photos, but it means that people can see photos as fine art, even if there aren't. And now let's talk about the composition over here. I don't want to end this video without giving you a practical tip about landscape photography. So it's snowing, as you can see, it's really beautiful. And there's a fallen pine tree in the lake that acts like a leading line, like a really strong leading line towards those pine trees in the back. And then I'm having a really strong diagonal coming from the right side of the photo and descending towards the same place. So this is another thing that I'm going to talk about in my webinar from next week. There are some rules, some visual rules that you can use. They're not oftenly mentioned in photography. They're more related to paintings, and you can use those rules to enforce attention on a subject. I do have the movement of the water. I will not do a long exposure right now, but I think this is a very pleasant and simple composition. And in landscape photography, the more simple you go, the better your photo is. So let's look at the settings: ISO 100, f11 and 0.6 seconds. And I'm also using my polarizer to take some of the glare of the water. And there you have it. I'm having this really simple photo where you have the snow highlighting the shape of the fallen tree, and also creates a really beautiful negative space behind those dark pine trees. So if you want to learn more about landscape photography, make sure to check the details about that webinar from next week. Maybe you will decide to join, and I'm pretty sure you're going to get some value from that webinar. I don't intend to talk nonsense. I have a presentation that I prepared for that webinar, and I think it's going to be a very interesting talk. And the number is limited to 50 places because I want to give everyone the opportunity to ask questions after the webinar is finished. So until next time, keep on photographing, and maybe I'll see you at the webinar from next week.